Right now on this planet, billions of conversations are happening at the same moment. People arguing about dinner, lovers whispering across pillows, mothers reading bedtime stories, strangers laughing on buses. The air around you is thick with words. But somewhere, hundreds of thousands of years ago, there was a sound that no longer exists. The very first time a human being said something to another human being. The first idea passed from one mind to another, without using teeth, or claws, or pointing fingers. And that sound is gone, forever. We will never hear it. We cannot recover it. The first voice recording in human history was made in 1860, which means everything before that is silence on tape. Imagine a song where every instrument has been destroyed, but the melody still hums quietly inside every cell of your body. That is what we are talking about tonight. I cannot prove what I am about to tell you is the absolute truth. But there is something strange. Your body seems to remember. When somebody asks, what was the first story in human history, we reach for familiar names. The Iliad, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Vedas. These feel ancient. They feel like the beginning, but they are not. They are only the first stories that were written down, not the first stories that were told. The gap between those two events is roughly 290,000 years. Think about that for a moment. Modern humans appeared on Earth around 300,000 years ago. Writing appeared about 5,500 years ago. That means for 294,500 years, thousands of generations of human beings sat around fires and told stories that no one was able to record. Not a single word survived, not one, like a vast library burned to the ground, where the ashes still smolder quietly inside the DNA of every person alive today. If you tried to walk through that span of time, with each year as a single footstep, you would be walking from Hanoi to Paris. And every step of that walk, somebody was telling a story that you and I will never get to hear. Now look around you. Wherever you are right now, maybe in your bedroom, maybe on a train, maybe lying in bed at 11 o'clock at night, with the lights off, the only glow coming from a small rectangle in your hands. Tonight, watching this video, you are doing exactly what your ancestors did for 300,000 years. You are listening to somebody tell a story in the dark. The screen of your phone is the modern fire. I am the storyteller by the flame. And you are sitting inside that circle of light, just like your great-great-great-great-great-grandmother once did. The only difference is that your circle is now 7 billion people wide. YouTube has roughly 2.7 billion active monthly users. The estimated human population when our ancestors first mastered fire was around 200,000. That means our nightly fireside circle today is about 13,000 times larger than the entire human species used to be. Every time you open YouTube at night, you are unconsciously sitting down at an ancient fire that has never gone out. It might sound dramatic, I know. But I think by the end of this, you'll understand. The way you look at your phone before sleep will not feel quite the same. So here's the question that pulls us forward. What was that first story actually about? And why, after 300,000 years, does the human brain still refuse to stop telling them? To answer that, we have to start somewhere uncomfortable. We have to start in silence. For the first 6 million years of our evolutionary lineage, our ancestors lived in a world without stories. Warning calls when a predator came near, mating calls, cries of pain, the same kinds of sounds every other primate makes. Modern chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, use roughly 30 to 40 different vocal signals. A modern human, by contrast, speaks around 16,000 words a day. Somewhere between those two numbers, something extraordinary happened. But for most of our history, we were on the chimpanzee side of the line, and the reason we didn't tell stories yet is simple. Storytelling requires 3 things that no creature on Earth had ever possessed at the same time. You need free time, you need a safe place, and you need a reason to believe that tomorrow is actually coming. Before fire, no animal had all 3. When the sun set, you climbed a tree. You curled into the back of a cave. You hoped to survive until morning. Nobody tells a story while running from a leopard. A night before fire was like being trapped in a dark room with the door wide open. You cannot think about the future when you are not sure you will live to see it. There is no room for imagination when every shadow could end you. I find this strange to sit with. 99% of human history happened in that kind of primal silence. We are only the loud 1% at the very end. And then, around 1 million years ago, in a cave in South Africa that archaeologists now call wonderwork, something changed. For the first time, our ancestors kept a fire burning longer than a few hours. They controlled it, they fed it, they protected it from the wind. And when the fire burned through the night, something that no creature had ever owned before suddenly belonged to us. Spare time. Before fire, the useful day ended at sunset. Maybe 12 hours in summer, as few as 8 in winter. Then the darkness swallowed everything. Fire extended the day by 2 to 4 hours. Multiply that by thousands of generations, hundreds of millions of nights, hundreds of billions of extra hours of human awareness. And in those hours something miraculous happened. Humans had nothing to do but stare across the fire at each other. Fire was the first clock our species ever owned. It didn't measure time. The next time you sit next to a candle, remember, you are looking at the most important invention in human history. Not the wheel, not agriculture. Fire. Everything else came after, and only because of it. But fire alone doesn't make storytelling. Fire made it possible. Something else made it inevitable. This is the part of the story where everything turns. For decades, scientists believed that human language evolved because we needed to cooperate while hunting. To say things like, the mammoth is over there, you go left, I go right. It seemed obvious. Language as a tool, language as a weapon, language as a survival mechanism. The brain grew bigger so we could chase animals more efficiently. And then, in the early 2010s, one anthropologist did something nobody had bothered to do before. She actually recorded a hunter-gatherer society talking from morning until night. She lived among them, she listened, and what she found shook the scientific community. During the daytime, conversations among the hoansi people of the Kalahari were exactly what you would expect. Practical, hunting, food, conflicts, complaints, logistics, negotiations over who owes who what. Only about 6% of daytime conversations were stories. The rest was the work of staying alive. But at night, when the sun dropped behind the horizon and the fires were lit, something almost magical happened. The character of human conversation flipped completely. 81% of nighttime talk became stories. Tales of ancestors, stories about spirits, adventures from distant lands nobody had ever visited. Songs, jokes that made the whole camp shake with laughter. Myths about how the world began. Language did not evolve so we could hunt. Language evolved so we could dream. Here's the twist that I cannot get out of my head. Fire did not give us language. Fire gave us a reason to use language for something useless, something beautiful, something that no animal before us had ever bothered to do. Imagine. Daytime language is a knife. It cuts, it sorts, it labels. Nighttime language is a paintbrush. It draws things that have never existed. When I first read about this study, I sat in silence for 10 minutes because it meant something almost holy. Every song you have ever heard, every book you have ever read, every movie you have ever watched, every poem, every prayer, every lullaby, all of it began on one specific night, roughly 300,000 years ago, when one human being looked at another human being across a small flame and said in some lost language we will never recover, "Let me tell you something." That moment is gone, but you are the result of it. Speaking of stories that change us, this is a good time to mention something. The reason this video exists at all is because of the people who support work like this. Stories have been quietly shaping human beings for 300,000 years, and they are still doing it tonight. Today's sponsor believes in that same quiet power. They build tools that help people tell better stories, learn languages, or listen to voices from across the world. If that sounds like something that fits the fire in your own life, the link is below. And now, back to ours, because there is a bigger question hiding underneath all of this. Why did storytelling matter so much that it ended up creating the entire civilization you are surrounded by? The answer is a paradox. A chimpanzee can remember the location of 10 fruit trees in a forest. That is impressive. A human being can believe in a story where no fruit tree exists at all, and then act on that belief for an entire lifetime. Every country you have ever heard of is a story. Every religion is a story. Every currency is a story. Every corporation, every law, every nation's anthem, every wedding ring, every passport. None of these things exist in nature. You cannot find a dollar bill growing on a tree. You cannot pay rent with paper unless millions of people have agreed, silently, to believe in the same story about what that paper means. The human brain spends roughly 30% of its energy in something neuroscientists call the default mode network. It is the part of you that activates when you imagine, when you remember, when you tell yourself stories about yourself. Your brain is not a thinking machine. It is a storytelling machine, and thinking is just a side effect. Everything you did today was a reenactment of an old story first told around some forgotten fire. You went to work because of a story about productivity and meaning. You got married or hoped to because of a story about love. You voted or refused to vote because of a story about belonging. Money is the most expensive story ever told. Religion is the longest. Love is the most private. Fire didn't create civilization. The stories told around fire created civilization. When I look at a banknote now, I don't see paper anymore. I see 300,000 years of human beings practicing how to believe in things that aren't there. Now look around you again. You are sitting somewhere, maybe in a room, maybe on a bus, maybe in bed at midnight. You are looking at a screen that glows. That screen is a fire, a small, artificial, perfectly engineered fire. And I am telling you a story through it. A story about the first story. This isn't a metaphor. This is biology. When you watch this video, the same brain regions activate that would have activated in your ancestor 300,000 years ago, sitting in the dark, listening to someone speak in a language we will never recover. You are not more advanced than them. You are doing exactly what your brain was designed to do. Listen to stories in dim light. When you hear a story that moves you, your brain releases oxytocin, the same hormone that is released when you hug someone you love. The same hormone released when you sit next to a person who feels safe. Your brain treats a good story like physical closeness. YouTube is the largest digital cave humanity has ever built. And every creator inside it is just a storyteller by a fire. I don't know who you are. I will never meet you. But right now, you and I are doing what humans have been doing for 300,000 unbroken years. Something quietly sacred lives in that simple fact. Now I want to pull the camera back, way back. Pull yourself out of the room you are in, out of the building, out of the city, out of the country, up past the clouds, past the atmosphere, until you are looking at Earth from space. Now press fast forward but in reverse. 100 years ago, the night side of Earth started filling with bright spots over the cities. 1,000 years ago, only a handful of lanterns flickered in scattered towns. 10,000 years ago, small clusters of campfires were spread across the continents like fireflies. 100,000 years ago, just a few groups in Africa. And 300,000 years ago, somewhere on this dark planet, there was a single spark. One fire. One human looking at another human and saying the very first thing anyone had ever said. From that single point of light, everything you know unfolded. Every book, every film, every song, every painting, every text message you have ever sent, every I love you, and every goodbye. All of it is downstream of that one spark. We are a species that learned to turn darkness into light, and then light into meaning. Sometimes I think about that first ancestor, the one who told the very first story. They had no idea what they were starting. They were probably just trying to make someone smile, or warn a child, or describe something they had seen, or libraries or satellites or the internet. But maybe that is also true for us tonight. Maybe something one of us says this week will become the spark for something 300,000 years from now. I want you to carry one thing with you after you turn this video off. Your brain, the same brain processing these words, is still wired to sit around a fire. When you feel lonely at night, that isn't a flaw. That is 300,000 years of ancestors whispering to you. Find your circle. Find your fire. Find someone to tell stories with. When you catch yourself scrolling at 2 in the morning, that isn't a phone addiction in the way we usually mean it. It is an ancient instinct, searching for the warm circle of light it recognizes from somewhere deep in its bones. The question isn't how to break that habit. The question is whether your circle is real, whether the stories you are listening to are worth 300,000 years of evolution spent learning to listen. Every time you choose a story to consume, you are choosing who sits next to you at tonight's fire. That is why I make these. Not because I want information to travel from my mouth to your ears, but because, for 15 minutes, you and I get to sit around a fire together. Even if only in imagination. So tonight, when you turn this off and lie down to sleep, you might wake up around 3 in the morning. Many people do. Your ancestors woke up at the same hour every night, for thousands of years. When that happens to you, Don't rush back to sleep. Don't reach for your phone right away. Lie still in the dark for a minute. Just listen. There is a fire still burning somewhere inside you. A fire passed down through 10,000 generations. There is a story waiting to be told. And maybe, in that quiet moment, you will hear an echo of the very first story, the one whispered in some cave, under a sky full of stars we no longer get to see clearly. The story is still there, inside you. Listen to it, and if you can, tell it to someone. Because that is what human beings have done for 300,000 years. That, more than anything else, is what still makes us human. Thank you for sitting around the fire with me tonight. If you hear the first story in your dreams, come back and tell me about it in the comments. I will read them.